Nice to see you, and thank you for staying so long today. I am the last speaker. So I would like to explain you why many of us experience jet lag, even without crossing time zones, even without traveling a lot. So this has something to do with our daily rhythm. And you might know that many of our physiological functions show a rhythmic nature. Sleep-wake cycles are well known, but also cardiovascular parameters, for example, the blood pressure, the heart rate, are changing during the day, even if we don't move. And hormonal levels, many hormonal levels display an oscillation, but also our mental activity is different at different times of the day. But the question is it just a response to different changes in our environment, so we react with this rhythmicity to the changes in the environment, or is it an internal thing? Is it dictated by an internal timekeeping system? And the latter is true. So, and in this case, we speak about circadian rhythm. And so the criteria to speak about circadian rhythm in case of rhythmicity in biological processes is that its period length is about 24 hours, that it is present, this rhythmic process is still present also in the absence of environmental cues. That means if we don't get any time information from the environment, it is still, if we are isolated from the environment, this rhythm still exists. But there is an interconnection between the environment, and this is, if you already experience jet lag, you know that it takes several days to get adapted to the new time zone. And during this adaptation process, we speak about jet lag. And that means that this function, this internal timekeeping, is quite robust. So that's why it takes several days to get adapted to the new time zone. So what could be the advantage of this time measuring system? So one advantage we think now, I'm not sure we know all advantages, but one is that the organism can prepare for upcoming changes, and then the answer, the response is more effective than if it just reacts to upcoming changes. And the other explanation could be the possibility of timely separation of antagonistic processes like anabolic synthesizing processes in our body and catabolic degrading processes, because they would, at the same time, they would work against each other. So with this movie, I would like to show you what can be the advantage of this rhythm in case of a sunflower. You will see the movement of the leaves during the day. It's much faster than in the reality. So now it's midday. You see that the orientation is directed towards the sun. It's afternoon. The shadows are becoming longer. And during the night, they bend down. They save energy. And now it is still dark, but during this dark period, they already are prepared for the upcoming sun, and that sunrise. The leaves are already oriented towards the sun, and this means that there is a very effective. Now you see a repeated movie. That means that in the morning they are already prepared for the sun, and the photosynthesis can occur in a very effective manner. So, how can we measure time? Our cells can measure time with the help of molecular clockworks. these clockworks are based on transcriptional translational feedback mechanism. And first, I will show you a very simplified model of this clockwork where we have a positive and a negative factor. The positive factor is a complex of transcription factors which binds to the promoter of the so-called negative factor and supports the transcription. If the negative factor is transcribed, then it is translated on the ribosomes into a protein, and if it accumulates in the nucleus of the cell, it inhibits the activity of the positive factor. That means it inhibits its own transcription. Then during the day, this negative factor matures and becomes degraded, and when it disappears, then the cycle can begin again. So the positive factor is active and the transcription starts again, and this is the next cycle. So what we saw here, it happens during a 24 hours cycle. So, but this is only an oscillator. This can only generate a rhythm. But we need output pathways which can, this rhythm converts into cellular functions. And we need input pathway, and this is the way how the system can communicate with the environment and can be adapted during a jet lag process to the new environmental time. This basic mechanism has been described by these 3 American scientists who received for this discovery the Nobel Prize in 2017. They discovered it in fruit fly, but it turned out that this mechanism is very conserved. That means it's similar in fungi and in human. So this is the mammalian clock. It looks very complex, and then I don't want to go into detail. I just want to highlight you this basic feedback mechanism, which I already presented to you, and these are already the mammalian components. BMAL1 and clock are the transcription factors which activate transcription of the negative factors, cryptochrome and period, and then they move into the nucleus where they can inhibit the positive factor. This is the basic feedback loop, and sorry, the similar process, we can see the similar process in the movie. So this is the nucleus with the genes of the negative factors, cry and purr, and these blue and green boxes are the positive factors. So this is the RNA, these are the ribosomes, so the negative factors are now synthesized. They accumulate in the nucleus. It takes time, it takes long time, and now it's already evening. And now there is the inhibition, so the genes of purr and cry are switched off. There is a degradation of the negative factor, and if sun rises, then the positive factor is released from the inhibition. So this is how you can imagine what happens during the day. But now we see how cells can measure time. But what about the whole body? In our body, we distinguish between central and peripheral clocks. The central clock is localized in the brain and can, through neural and hormonal mechanisms, synchronize the peripheral clocks so that they tick in a synchronized phase. What about disturbances of this rhythm? So rhythm disturbances can have endogenous or exogenous origins. Endogenous origin would mean that the clockwork doesn't work. It happens rarely. Much more frequent is that there are exogenous problems, for example, jet lag, shift work or night work, sleep disturbances. In these cases, endogenous rhythm and environmental rhythms are not synchronized, and people who suffer from rhythm disturbances over longer period, they have a higher risk of developing cardiovascular diseases, metabolic disturbances like obesity or diabetes, certain malignancies, and psychiatric diseases. So we should avoid rhythm disturbances. But how can we measure our rhythm? How can we measure the phase of our activity? So the measure of human's clock phase is the so-called chronotype. It tells if you are late or you are an early type. Would you raise your hand if you think you are an early type? Mm-hmm. And who is a late type? Oh, much more people. That's what I expected. And especially at your age, at the age of high school students, it's much more frequent because chronotype changes during the life. Okay, then you will have the problem of social jet lag, I guess. So we can measure chronotype by determining the mid-phase of our sleep, but there is a problem that we have differences between workdays and weekends. On workdays, social constraints can force you to wake up earlier. You have to go to school, and therefore you go to bed also earlier in the evening. But on free days, you can freely decide when to get up, yeah? Yes, and when to go to bed, and you will sleep according to your endogenous rhythm. So there is a difference, and this difference is called social jet lag. The average social jet lag in Europe is about 1.5 hours for the adult, and about 30% of the population have a social jet lag longer than 2 hours. That means that you change your sleep schedule twice a week as you would fly to Moscow and back twice a week. Social jet lag is associated with a higher incidence of depression, obesity, and type 2 diabetes. We also do some epidemiological research on social jet lag. We showed that academic performance is negatively associated with social jet lag, especially in the morning. So we investigated the academic performance of our students. And what I would like to show you as a little research, that social jet lag shows an association with the cardiovascular regulation. So what we measured, that was heart rate variability. This variability means the variability of interbeat intervals. What is good? This is the flexible regulation. That means that variability is high. So the good guy is the high variability. Low heart rate variability reflects bad autonomic regulation of the heart, nerval regulation of the heart. And if we measure it during sleep, then it reflects a poor sleep quality. And what I would like to show you is how social jet lag might affect the heart rate variability during sleep in two groups of people with lower and higher social jet lag. And just focus on the diagram with higher social jet lag. So these people heart rate variability shows significant differences between work days and free days, with lower heart rate variability at the beginning of sleep on work days. That means that according to the endogenous rhythm, these people wouldn't sleep at this time, at the beginning of their sleep phase or sleep period on work days. And here we see that this lower heart rate variability was shown to be associated with a higher risk of developing cardiovascular diseases. So we suggest that reduction of social jet lag can improve sleep quality and helps to prevent cardiovascular diseases. And this is the take-home message. In our group, we do different research, different experiments on the molecular clock, on animal models, but part of our studies are focused on epidemiological consequences of rhythm disturbances. So this is my group, many young people, and I would like to highlight Csongor Santo, who is an NTA student, and we are happy to work with him, and I thank you for your attention.
Krisztina, for this very exciting presentation, and this is open for questions. Please.
Thank you, very interesting presentation. Did I understand correctly that lower heart rate variability is associated with the cardiovascular diseases? But heart rate variability depends on heart rate as well, doesn't it?
Yes.
And so people who have lower heart rates are usually in better shape, so they have lower probability of getting cardiovascular diseases. So is this not an indirect effect?
You may, if we have higher heart rate, then the heart rate variability is higher. It's not true. It's in the opposite direction.
That's what I'm saying.
So high heart rate variability reflects a high vagus tone, a high parasympathetic tone, because heart rate variability and there are different measures for heart rate variability. This measure, what I showed you, is a measure of the parasympathetic tone. So if this variability is high, the parasympathetic tone is high, that means that the heart rate is low. And this is a better condition for heart regulation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Imola?
Thank you. So this was a very fascinating talk. I was wondering whether your internal clock can be tuned or not. So you cannot change, your morning meetings, but then you might get, this social jet lag. So can you kind of tune your clock instead of, influencing what you cannot influence?
Thank you. So, of course, the aim would be to reduce social jet lag. And I think there are two possibilities. The one that social constraints are changing, and that what happened in several countries, that, for example, school start was shifted to 9 o'clock because young people are, most of them are late type, and this is the possibility, or flexible working time. It's also a possibility. I think I'm not for home office at all, but this is also a sort of change in timing our work. The other thing what we can do for reduce the social jet lag is our internal clock is genetically set. But every day the sun and temperature changes and different environmental cues can a little shift it to an earlier phase. And if we go outside in the morning, the blue light fraction of natural light is very important, because the cells in the retina, which are connected to the central clock, only sense blue light. And in the evening hours, of course, we should avoid blue light, and that's why most of us have a filter on the phone or on the mobile phone or on the screen. So that are the suggestions how to reduce our social jet lag.
Thank you. Yes, there is a question on the back.
My question would be that of course humans started to measure time, or at least we don't wake up with the sun and go to bed when the sun sets. And does that mean that everyone starts off with some sort of social jet lag because of this? Or is it good for humans that we have, for example, clock shifts, in the winter and in the summer?
Yes, our clock shifts a little during the year, and what again could help against social jet lag, to quit the daylight saving time in the summer. Because during the daylight saving time period, evenings are very long. And this is an information for our internal clock that it is still early. But it is not true, because we have to wake up at 7 o'clock or so, and we have to be at the university or in the school at 8 o'clock. But I know many people like long sunny evenings in the summer, but it is bad for the internal clock.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the great presentation, Krisztina, and we are going to hand you the certificate.